Hello, scientists! Today we're going to talk about the characteristics of life. These are the specifications that scientists have decided that distinguish living things from non-living things. Our first characteristic is that all living things have DNA. DNA is a universal genetic code that stores all of the information that make living things what they are. It's really important for growth and reproduction. And DNA is passed from parent to offspring so that the offspring have this code or directions to grow and be what they're going to be. Our second characteristic is that all living things are made of cells. Some living things are unicellular, they're just one cell, and some are multicellular, they're made of many different cells. Cells themselves grow and reproduce or divide. And cells can be specialized. We see this in mostly multicellular organisms where different cells in the body have different functions. So if you think about yourself, you have neurons that are cells, you have muscle cells, and they have different jobs in your body. Third, all living things reproduce. Like we said before, this is how DNA gets passed on. Some organisms do sexual reproduction where there are two parents and DNA from both parents creates a similar organism. We also have asexual reproduction where there's just one parent and that parent divides or has an offspring, and our new organism or offspring is identical because the DNA is exactly the same as the parent. All living things grow and develop. In unicellular organisms, we see one cell growing. Maybe it's making organelles and developing into what it's going to be. And then multicellular organisms, we usually have a single fertilized egg, and that one fertilized egg will divide over and over and over to create specialized cells, which will make a complex organism. Fifth, all living things obtain or use energy. We often think about food, right, in humans being needed for energy and being needed to grow and develop, but this might look like sunlight for plants, it could look like nutrients from the soil, and look like more than just what we think about as food. And an important vocab word that we'll use to think about this is metabolism. So your metabolism is all the chemical reactions in your body that break down what we think about as food or energy, and then rebuild those into molecules that your body can use. 6, all living things maintain a stable internal environment. Another way to say this is homeostasis. Homeostasis is regulation in the body to keep certain aspects the same. So this might look like your body temperature, it might look like pH, right, like the acidity of your stomach. It could look like sugar or water, but there are certain things that we want to keep the same or at the same level all the time so that your body or any living thing's body can function properly. Number 7, all living things respond to their environments. Or to be more specific, living things can detect or respond to stimuli. This might be a plant growing towards light or your pupils dilating in response to a change in light. We also have sound, heat, touch, pain, etc. Even with unicellular organisms, we can see that if we introduce certain chemicals to their environment, we see that they'll shrink away from those chemicals. Often this response involves some kind of movement of the organism. Finally, all living things evolve. Evolution is changes over many generations and includes both DNA and physical traits. When we're talking about evolution, we're talking about something called natural selection. So living things that have traits that help them survive are more likely to survive. And we'll talk about this a lot more later this year. These characteristics will come up over and over again as you continue your study of biology. So it's nice to have some way to remember them. And one trick for remembering lists of things is by using a mnemonic device. So here I've listed out simply our 8 characteristics of life: DNA, cells, reproduction, growth and development, energy, homeostasis, response, and evolution. To create my mnemonic device, I'm going to take the letters that correspond to each of those characteristics. So I have D, C, R, G, E, H, R, E. And then I'm going to come up with some kind of silly phrase that matches those letters. And the idea is that the phrase will be easier to remember than the characteristics themselves, but it's a little memory trick so that I can work backwards and come up with my characteristics. So I encourage you to come up with a mnemonic device, a phrase on your own, and the order of the characteristics doesn't matter in any way, so you can rearrange the letters. Here's one that I came up with. Every golden cat eagerly devours rare rotten hamburgers. This isn't the best one. I'm sure you can come up with something better or that will be easier for you to remember. I just wanted to give you an example. That's it for today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below.